For 29 years, it was way more than just a prison. It was a statement. You've heard the name, Alcatraz, a fortress island right in the middle of San Francisco Bay, known as The Rock. It was supposed to be the final, inescapable stop for America's most wanted. See, this wasn't just any old prison. It was a symbol of absolute control, a place specifically designed to break the will of men who couldn't be broken anywhere else. And the people who built it, they were 100% certain they had created the world's most secure prison. Escape, they figured, was literally impossible. Well, that whole idea was put to the ultimate test when 3 inmates just disappeared from their cells. They left behind a mystery that has baffled authorities and, honestly, fascinated all of us for over half a century. So how can anyone even dream of escaping a place like that? To really get it, you've got to understand what these guys were truly up against. You know, the island didn't just pop up as a federal prison overnight. Nope, it had a long history, starting way back as a military fort for harbor defense. But over time, it evolved into this purpose-built cage for the nation's most notorious criminals, the ones they called the incorrigibles. And get this, its first line of defense wasn't even man-made. It was the brutal, unforgiving San Francisco Bay. We're talking frigid water that could give you hypothermia in minutes, and currents so powerful they could just sweep you right out into the Pacific Ocean. And then you get inside, and wow, every single detail was engineered to crush any hope of escape. They took the old military prison and beefed it up with tougher steel bars, new remote-controlled locking systems, and these elevated gun galleries so guards could see everything while staying completely out of reach. So who ends up in a place like this? Not your average criminal. We're talking about the absolute worst of the worst. Guys like Al Capone, whose money and power meant nothing here, and George Machine Gun Kelly. Alcatraz was built for the inmates that other prisons just could not handle. But even against all those odds, 3 men would cook up a meticulous and frankly brilliant plan to challenge the unbreakable legend of Alcatraz. And this wasn't some, spur-of-the-moment decision. Oh no, this was a crazy, detailed plan that took 6 whole months to pull off, masterminded by Frank Morris and 2 brothers, John and Clarence Anglin. They chipped away at the concrete, built a secret workshop literally on top of the cell block, and got ready to disappear into the night. Okay, we have to talk about these decoy heads, because this part is just genius. These were not just some lumpy pillows. No way. They were crafted out of soap, toilet paper, and plaster, then painted with flesh-colored paint from the art kit, and get this, topped with actual human hair they snagged from the barbershop floor. It was just realistic enough to fool the guards on their nightly rounds. And their resourcefulness? It was just off the charts. They somehow stole more than 50 of the prison-issue raincoats, stitched them all together, and then used the heat from the prison's own steam pipes to seal the seams. And just like that, they had an inflatable raft and life vests. So, picture this. It's the morning of June 12th, 1962. A guard is doing his rounds, pokes what he thinks is a sleeping inmate, and the head rolls right off the pillow onto the floor. The alarm goes off, and one of the biggest manhunts in FBI history kicks off. So investigators start combing the bay. They find stuff, a paddle, some personal items wrapped up to be waterproof, even a life jacket. But here's the thing, instead of giving them answers, these clues just made the whole thing murkier. Was this proof that their plan failed? Or was this just gear they ditched after they made it to shore? After 17 years, the FBI just calls it. They close the case. The official conclusion? The men never made it. They drowned in the bay. Their bodies were swept out to sea. And officially, no one ever successfully escaped from Alcatraz. But it's never that simple, right? The official story is far from the only one. Over the decades, all these tantalizing bits of evidence have popped up that suggest a very, very different ending to this story. And this is really where the official story starts to come apart at the seams. On one hand, the FBI is saying, no way, the Bay is a killer. But then you have these other nagging facts. I mean, another inmate actually did prove that swimming to shore was possible. There were reports of a raft and footprints on Angel Island, and a car was stolen that night by 3 guys who fit their description. And then, fast forward to 2013, and this bombshell drops. A letter shows up at the San Francisco Police Department, supposedly from John Anglin himself. It claimed all three of them made it, but that Frank died in 2008 and his brother Clarence died in 2011. The FBI's analysis of the handwriting? Inconclusive. It just became another baffling piece of the puzzle. So let's be super clear here. The FBI might have closed its file, but the U.S. Marshal Service? They never did. They took over the case, and to this very day, it is still open and active. As far as they're concerned, Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers are still wanted men. So the escape became this legendary story, but funnily enough, it's not what brought Alcatraz down. So what did, and why are we still so obsessed with it? In the end, it really just came down to cold, hard cash. I mean, think about it. Everything, from food and water to supplies, even the guards, had to be brought to the island by boat. By 1959, it was costing over $10 a day to keep one prisoner on the rock. That's more than 3 times what it cost at a normal prison. And the irony here is just incredible. The very same saltwater that made it such a secure prison was also literally eating away at the concrete and steel. Faced with millions in repair costs on top of the sky-high operating budget, the government just pulled the plug. It closed down less than a year after the Great Escape. And now? Today, The Rock is one of the biggest tourist attractions in the country, run by the National Park Service. Its cells aren't filled with the worst of the worst anymore. They're filled with over 1 million visitors a year, all of them drawn in by the dark history and that one enduring mystery. And so here we are, left with the exact same question investigators have been asking for over 60 years. The U.S. Marshal's case is still open. If they survived, these guys would be in their 90s today. Did 3 men pull off the impossible and just vanish into new lives? Or did The Rock claim its final victims after all? The answer, just like the men themselves, seems to be lost to the tides.